Going back to what the occult actually is, I'd like to read a quote by the occultist and Freemason C.W. Leadbeater from 1913. He said, "How shall we define occultism?" And this is his definition, which I think is a pretty good one. The word is derived from the Latin occultus, meaning hidden, so that it is the study of the hidden laws of nature. Since all the great laws of nature are in fact working in the invisible world far more than in the visible world, occultism involves the acceptance of a much wider view of nature than that which is ordinarily taken. The occultist, then, is a man or woman who studies all the laws of nature that he or she can reach or of which he or she can hear. And as a result of his or her study, she identifies him herself with the laws and with these laws of nature and devotes their life to the service of human evolution. That is what occultism is. It's understanding the laws of nature and our connection to them, the self's connection to them. Okay? And as a result, we are aligning all of our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions toward the goal of the evolution, not only of our individuated self, but the evolution of all beings. Okay? That's the goal of the occult and occultism in general. So this is my personal working definition of the occult. When I use the word the occult, this is what I mean by it, when I use the phrase the occult. The occult is a body of science which is not widely known to the general population, consisting of hidden knowledge about the workings of the human psyche and the laws of nature, both the seen laws, meaning the physical laws, the physical sciences, and the unseen laws, meaning the spiritual laws, the laws that govern morality, the laws that govern behavioral consequence. Okay? That is my working definition of what the occult and occultism is in general. And I think it's a pretty simple, practical working definition. So when we're talking about hidden knowledge or occulted knowledge, what knowledge does occultism hide? What kind of knowledge are we actually talking about? Occultism comprises and quote-unquote hides two bodies of knowledge. Now, I put hides in quotes because I just want to make a point here. We can't even look at it such that dark occultists, which I'm going to explain their motivations in a future slide, we can't look at it as the beings who want to keep this information back from people actually try to eradicate it and keep it out of people's hands. That's really not what they do, particularly in the modern world. Their main method of manipulation is dissuasion. They try to dissuade people from looking into these bodies of knowledge by telling them there's nothing to see here, move along. Okay, back to bed, nothing to see here, folks. That's not important, or that's not practical, that can't be used in your everyday life. It's of no benefit to you personally, practically, in your life to learn about that. Okay? Or it's some quaint religious belief that has no bearing on anything, that was just made up by people a long time ago, and it's all nonsense. You know, that's the main method of dissuasion that is employed. Okay? And most people fall for it. Most people just, think there's nothing to any of this. I don't need to know about it. That's one of the heights of ignorance is the phrase, I don't need to know about that. Okay? Now, just think about that statement right there. The highest height of ignorance is, the pinnacle of all ignorance is, I don't want to know about that. I don't care to know about that. But the people who think they have it figured out say, that's not something I need to know about. What do I need to look into that for? And that's how you know they're gotten. They're already owned. Lock, stock, and barrel. And most people are in that position because they think, all of this is just hokum. All of this is just religion. I tried to explain to somebody who's very concerned about the the political degradation and the political process and the direction America and the world in general is headed, politically and financially. And I tried to explain, what really drives this underneath is the occult. Religion drives this. Religious beliefs by the people involved in dark occultism and their religious belief systems is ultimately what's driving the slavery system on earth. And he says to me, I don't need to know anything about that. I don't want to know anything about that. I said, oh, really? That's something you don't need to learn, you don't need to know about. He said, yeah, that's right, because I don't believe in any of that stuff. And I said, you're gotten. Right to them. They already have you. And you don't even understand, Because he said, that's somebody else's belief. How does that affect me? As if somebody else's beliefs can't affect us. And we're immune to what other people believe. Because particularly religious zealots and people who have very deep-seated belief systems based on faith and religion, right? They don't take action in the world based on those religious beliefs, do they? Never. They never do. And those actions would never affect anybody else living in the world. You're completely insulated from those behaviors. It's a child's view. At some point with someone like that, I have to set it down and say, you think you're fine? Well, then go be fine. At that point. Because that's a deep, hardcore level of ignorance to be in. Again, that's not really surpassed by much of anything in the way of ignorance, which is something we're going to talk about, the different kinds of ignorance. But to go back to what knowledge occultism actually is comprised of, the bodies of knowledge, the two main bodies of knowledge are knowledge of the self and knowledge of the laws of nature. That's basically it. The knowledge of the self, the knowledge of the human psyche and how the psyche operates, its components, its aspects, its motivations, its desires, etc. What drives us? What's going on at a subconscious level? What's going on at the unseen level? In the recesses of the human psyche, in the psychological realms. This is what is known as the minor knowledge of the occult. The minor arcana. Arcana is a Greek word that means knowledge. Okay? I have a Latin word that means knowledge. I tell people don't look at this because it's called the minor arcana or the lesser arcana as meaning of lesser importance. That is not what it means. It's just distinguishing it from that which is larger in scope as far as the kind of systems that it actually affects or that it governs. Okay, so you want to look at the part there on the left as this is the small scope of things, the scope of things operating at the individual level, at the individuated domain of the individual self. And then on the right-hand side here, you want to look at the major or greater arcana as simply being that which deals with the macrocosmic world, the world of large things, large systems of nature. Okay? The physical laws that, deal with dynamics and motion and gravity, etc. All of the physical dynamics, electromagnetism, etc. But then the major or greater arcana, the world of macrocosmic knowledge, also includes the knowledge of what I call natural law, the moral laws that govern the consequences of behavior of beings that have the capacity for holistic intelligence, or in other words, universal moral law, the laws that govern consciousness. These are the two bodies of knowledge that comprise all occult knowledge. And I ask people when I explain to them the two bodies of knowledge, what is not contained within these two groups? What knowledge that is of any significance, except, the football and baseball stats, okay, is of any significance in the realm of human life? I would say if you control these two bodies of knowledge and you're trying to dissuade people from looking into them, then you have people manipulated from the get-go. They don't have a chance if they don't understand these things. And it's the same thing like in the ancient priest classes that wanted to control the population. The priest king would go up to the top of the pyramid and tell people, hey, The great sky beast is getting ready to eat the sun, and it was an eclipse. It was a solar eclipse. And he's going to eat the earth next if you don't bow down and give me total power. And if you accept me as the intermediary between the gods and yourself, then, in a few minutes, the sun will come back and, life will continue on earth. And it worked beautifully because these people had no knowledge of the macroscopic laws of nature. They didn't understand the physical sciences and astronomy in particular back then. They didn't understand how that motion worked and how that phenomena worked. So that's how a differential in power can be created when you have a differential in knowledge present. A major point to keep in mind, and this is something people constantly take a unidimensional viewpoint regarding. So many people want to say, oh, all the occult is bad. It's knowledge, folks. It's not something that is universally good or universally evil. It's knowledge and what we do with it. That's it. It's a tool. It's a tool set. Would you say astronomy is good or evil? Would you say mathematics is good or evil? Would you say biology is good or evil? It's knowledge. That's all the occult is. It's knowledge. The consciousness of the wielder of that knowledge determine whether it's used for good or evil. So if I'm trying to create genetically engineered food products so I could sell people poison to undermine their health, just so I could make more money because I could grow more crops on less land, I'd say that's a pretty dastardly use of science, in my opinion, in my worldview. But science of biology and genetics is just knowledge. What we then do with them determines whether it's good or bad. The same for the occult, and that's how we have to look at it. The occult is a double-edged blade, however. There is, again, a light side to it and a dark side to it, and it's all dependent on how that knowledge is used. So the knowledge contained within the occult sciences can be used for good, which I consider the uplift of consciousness, or it can be used for evil, the manipulation of consciousness, the control of people, and ultimately putting people into bondage and slavery. To clearly distinguish between these different usages of occult knowledge, I refer to occult knowledge that is employed toward the expansion of human consciousness and morality as light occultism or magic. Now, some people won't make this distinction. They'll say it's all one body of information. I'm going to just group it all in. And it's a very dangerous proposition because those people, again, take a very unidimensional approach, and they usually take the approach it's all bad, and therefore none of it should be looked into. Religious people take this approach. It's why they don't understand the occult. Many New Agers take this approach. They say, if it's not pure spiritualism or pure spiritual mysticism, then I don't want anything to do with it. I consider that's dark stuff or sorcery. It's a very unidimensional and naive and childish view of this body of science. Okay? So that's what I call light occultism. When you use this hidden knowledge toward the uplift of humanity, toward the expansion of consciousness and the expansion of morality. So the other way of using it is for manipulation, control, and the suppression of consciousness. And if this knowledge is used in that methodology, then I refer to it as dark occultism or sorcery, is a perfectly acceptable term for it. Thus, the practitioners of light occultism could be referred to as light occultists, magicians, magi, light builders, or light workers. All terms that I feel could be used interchangeably as long as we're looking at it within the context of occult knowledge as I have defined it in my working definition. And you could look at the practitioners of dark occultism as dark occultists, sorcerers, dark builders, or dark workers, all terms that I feel are perfectly acceptable and interchangeable with each other. So why has such knowledge been hidden from humanity? Well, we'll look at why each set of occultists hide this information. Okay, first let's look at why dark occultists hide it. Then at a later point we'll look at why even light occultists sometimes conceal this knowledge. Dark occultists have deliberately hidden occult knowledge in order to create and maintain a power differential between those who hold such knowledge and those who are ignorant of it. We've already been talking about that. And through this mechanism, all power ultimately flows to them, because knowledge applied is power in the world. Knowledge is not itself power, it is the potential for power. When you apply knowledge, then you can gain power. If you don't have it, you're completely disempowered from the very beginning. Dark occultists work through fear and manipulation to bring about compliance with their own selfish will. And that's what I would consider the dark arts in general. I would consider sorcery the act of applying knowledge in order to bring about manipulation in other people so that they comply with your selfish will, what you want for you only, not for the uplift of all. Dark occultists' work is always done in secrecy. They don't want to do their works in the light of day where everyone can know what they're doing. They're constantly contravening the freedom and prosperity of all but themselves, of course. That's the out-of-control ego run amok. The pure left brain, modality of consciousness, without the balance of the sacred feminine, compassionate, creative right brain. I consider this pyramidal, hierarchical, and compartmentalized structure the occult structure of our entire world. Dark occultists have completely infiltrated and permeated all institutional walks of life on earth. This is a topic I constantly talk about in my work, on my radio show, my podcast series, and in the interviews that I do. It's so important for people to understand this is who's really running the show here on earth. It's not just the international bankers. It is them, but they're dark occultists at the highest levels. The people involved in the political think tanks are dark occultists at the highest levels. The people involved in, corporatism and business at the very highest levels use these sciences and this knowledge. The high-level religionists in all religion, all ostensible religions, guaranteed they have this knowledge at the highest levels and they're using it for dark purposes. People want to think, oh, that's not happening in my religion. That's going on in all the other religions, but mine is completely pure and free of any wrongdoing. Yeah. Through their manipulation of these institutions, dark occultists currently hold the overall mindset of the human population in a general state of unconsciousness, thus holding humanity in a state of slavery. They have the hordes of humanity in thrall. Okay? They are completely at their mercy at this point because of the amount of knowledge that they lack. Not only regarding what the occult is in general, but regarding the multifaceted array of mind control methodologies that are being used against them on a daily basis, that they're being barraged with. And until we level that playing field through knowledge, don't expect it to change. Last aspect of occultism I want to touch on is dark occultism. I'm not going to belabor this too long. I just want to really talk about who are these people that I refer to as the dark occultists. You can call them a million different names, folks. It doesn't matter what you call them. You can call them sorcerers. You can call them dark Luciferians, those who have the light and use it for dark purposes. They are Satanists, okay? They are Setians. They are the Klipotic Kabbalists. Klipoth is the region below the tree of life that is the hell world in the Kabbalistic tradition, that is the inversion of all the true teachings of Kabbalah. of the true moral lessons of the true tradition, esoteric tradition of Kabbalah. If you descend into the Klopotic realms, it's the wastelands, the lands of the spent and corrupted souls that are simply husks, that used to be souls and spirits that are just like, withered out husks, the wastelands, in other words. That's Klopotic Kabbalah. They are the dark masons of the world. They are the dark Atonists. Aton was a variation of the sun or the light in the ancient Cometian tradition. Ultimately, it's all one cult, folks. It's the cult of the black sun. You could call them by any name you want, but they are a dark solar cult. Okay? When I say the dark sun, why the black or the dark sun? The sun represents light. It represents knowledge. It represents empowerment. It represents life. The antithesis of that, the total polar inversion of that, is it's still a form of light. It's still the sun, but it has darkness within it. So it's knowledge being used for all the wrong reasons. Knowledge being used to control, not enlighten, not uplift. Knowledge being used to put people in a prison. Knowledge being used to being used as a power differential over people who are still in a level of ignorance. So you're blinding people with that light, and you're enslaving them with it, with that knowledge. That's what these people are. Okay? If you don't even want to look at it in esoteric terms, they're people with the knowledge of how the self works, meaning deep psychology, very ancient, deep knowledge of psychology, combined with people who know about how the laws of nature function, which is very deep, hidden science. That's it. There are the two sciences that are at work. The physical sciences combined with psychology. And then you put the understanding of how moral law functions into there, which they know as well, and rebel against because they want to be gods on earth, and they want to conquer the natural law consequences or evade them to the longest amount of time that they possibly can. They're all the same cult. It doesn't make a difference who we're talking about here. You could be talking about Satanists, Setians, the worshippers of the great owl at Bohemian Grove, the Skull and Bones Order of Death, the cult of the Black Sun that came out of the Nazi and SS party of Germany. All right, in the modern day, they're top-level international bankers, top-level political figures, top-level financiers. High-level religionists, high-level members of royalty, so-called royal families, judiciary, military, high-level military, people involved at highest levels of media, highest levels of medicine, highest levels of education. Again, highest levels of all religious systems on the earth, and anybody's religion out there is not exempt from that. So-called cultural religions, secret societies and fraternal orders, think tanks, intelligence agencies, you name it. This is where the highest concentration of dark occultists are at. This is who they are. This is how they operate in the world. These are the institutions who determine how people's lives will be run, because we let them. And at the top level of every one of these institutions, you're going to find the cult of the Black Sun operating. Helena Blavatsky, the main teacher of the occult philosophy known as Theosophy, tried to warn people about these sorcerers, about this dark solar cult. In her third volume of The Secret Doctrine, she wrote this. And again, Blavatsky gets a bad name like Crowley, and they want to just throw all of her works out and say, oh, there's no wisdom in any of her work because that's the occult and that's bad. People who have never read her work will make statements like this. She said, for the true student of occult lore, white or divine magic could no more exist in nature without its counterpart black magic than day without night. Everything in that nature has an occult, a bright and a night side to it. True, magic has lost its name, and along with it, its rights to recognition. But its practice is in daily use. The real truth is that magic is still in full sway amidst mankind, however blind the latter to its silent presence and influence on its members, however ignorant society may be and remain to its daily and hourly beneficent and maleficent effects. Again, the light and the dark side to the occult. The world is full of such unconscious magicians. She's saying even some of the people involved in these institutions use their influence and don't really know that they're employing occult strategies in many cases. They're just using that knowledge. The world is full of such unconscious magicians in politics as well as in daily life, in the church as in the strongholds of free thought. Most of those magicians are, quote, sorcerers, unhappily. Not metaphorically, but in sober reality, by reason of their inherent selfishness. Again, my will be done. Okay? Their revengeful natures, their envy, and their malice. The true student of magic, well aware of the truth, looks on in pity, and if he be wise, keeps silent. Again, I don't agree with that philosophy. Okay? I don't agree with that ideology. I think we need to speak up more than ever regarding this, not keep silent about it. Again, I could present people who I have a great deal of respect for, and I don't have to agree with every single thing that they say. I could still have tremendous amount of respect for what they did get right and for the work that they did share. For every effort made by him to remove the universal cecity, which means blindness, is only repaid with ingratitude, slander, and often curses. Lies and calumny become his lot, and thus the well-wisher is soon torn to pieces as a reward for his benevolent desire to enlighten. And you know what I say? Damn it to hell, so be it. It doesn't matter what people make of it. It doesn't matter whether they don't want to take the wisdom. It doesn't matter whether they don't want to take the knowledge. I'm going to speak it anyway. That's what's going to happen. You know, and that's the level of courage and will that people need to step into.